Okay, so today we're going to talk about, start talking about how we organize data. We're going to cover two different ways of organizing. First, the frequency table, and then the stem and leaf plot. So for a frequency table, so let's say that there's a teacher and they marked a set of 32 test papers. The grades or scores earned by the students are as follows. So we have 90 and so on going down, so there should be 32 of these items here. Now, for a teacher, I might be interested in how many students scored in the 90s, how many students scored in the 80s, how many students scored in the 70s, and so on. So a frequency table would help me to figure out that information. Now, what's important to understand about a frequency table is you only create it with quantitative data. You do not use categorical data or qualitative data. So if the teacher had marked the test papers and she or he had put in an A, a B, a C, or a D, that's categorical or qualitative data, and you would not have made a frequency table on that. You could have you could have made a tally on how many people got A's, B's, C's, and D's, etc., and then used a bar graph to do this. But a frequency table is going to be used when we make a graph called a histogram. And with a histogram, it's different from a bar graph because the bars are touching, or the scale on the x-axis is continuous. So you're going to see that in the next lesson. So the frequency table, first of all, I want to write down ranges on the left-hand side. Okay, so the range of test scores. Okay, and then I want to write down frequency here. Actually, I'm going to do another column for cumulative frequency. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So the range of test scores. Now, I want to choose a range. I want to choose a range that's consistent for all of these ranges. So if I want something 10 points in each of my range, I might want to go from, let's say I want to go from 100 to 90. So a lot of people think that that's a 10-item range. Actually, 100 to 90 is an 11. There are 11 scores that I would put between 90 and 100. So I'd put scores of 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 99, and 100. And if you count those scores, so I'll count them and cross them out in red as I go. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there are 11 possible test scores in the range from 100 to 90, even though it looks like there's only 10. Okay, because you're including the endpoint of 90 and the endpoint of 100. All right, so instead of doing from 100 to 90, you might want to do from starting at 91 to 100, because we can see the last range here is 100. So you want to include 100 in your table, and you want to work backwards from there. Now, you will always want to make all these ranges have to be consistent. They have to have the same amount of items in each range as you go along. So if you choose that your item has to be 11 units wide, 11 points wide, then you have to be consistent with the next one. So I'd have to start at 90 for the next one and go down to 81. Okay, and then 80 for the next one and go down to 71. And then 70 to 61 and so forth. And let's see if that covers all of our, I think that might cover all of our, no, we have a 50. So we'd have to go to 60 to 51. And actually, I'd have to even go further than that because 50 is not included in here. So I'd have to go 50 to 41. Okay, this is a possible, a possible range. You could also have 11 items in your range. Like if no one told you how many items you have in your range or how many test scores are in your range, you could potentially go from 100 to 90, but then the next one would have to go from 89 to, because you can't have 90 in both categories. You can't have 90 in this portion and this portion, or else you wouldn't know where to put a tally for a test score of 90. You'd end up having to put it in both categories, and you don't want that. So if you went, the next one down, next test score possible down is 89, and so you'd have to go 11 down from that. So that's actually going to go to 79. Remember, it looks like there's only 10 spaces between, but you're including the endpoint of 79. So that makes it 11 possible test scores in that range. Okay, and that ends up being a little tricky because then we go from 78 to 68 and then so on. So you might, that gets a little awkward after a while. So I would suggest choosing the first one, the first range. Sometimes they'll tell you the range and sometimes you won't have to decide on it, but other times you have to make a decision about it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start writing down, going through my list of test scores and writing a tally mark in the frequency column whenever I see a test score in a certain range. So for 90, I'm going to put a tally mark here. For 85, it's, let's see, it's here. 74 is here. So I'm going to pause the video, put all my tally marks. You do the same thing and make sure that you come up with the same thing that I get. Okay, so I've gone through and I've put the tally marks in all the categories that I have. And hopefully you've come up with the same thing. Hopefully I'm correct. It's sort of harder than it looks like to do that sort of thing. So you really want to pay attention as you're going through. Now, I bundled in groups of 5. So every 4 lines I put as a vertical line, I put a diagonal slash through it to be my 5th point. So I can easily go about and count them. So I'm going to put a numerical count here. 6, that's 8, and I had one little one there, so that's 11, that's 4, 1, and 2. So let's count up these numbers. So 6 plus 8 is 14, plus 11 is 25, 29, 32. And that's good because I knew I had 32, right? So the total here is 32. Whoops, so I have 32 at the bottom there, okay? Now, the cumulative frequency is the frequency as we go. Let's see. It's a frequency as we go down in the chart. So cumulative meaning it accumulates. So for the cumulative frequency, we're going to add every range above the range that we're looking at. So first, first the frequency says, okay, the 6 right here means that there are 6 students who scored between 100 and 91. There are 8 students who scored between 90 and 81, 11 students who scored between 80 and 71, and so on. Cumulative frequency, it goes down. So it says, okay, there are 6 students who scored between 100 and 91. Now, accumulated looks at the range, looks at these 2 ranges together. So whatever I'm going to put in this range is going to be these 2 things together. So I'm going to add 6 and 8, which is 14. So altogether, 14 students scored between 100 and 81. Okay, and to get to the next cumulative frequency, I'm going to add 14 to 11 to get 25. To get to the next one, I'm going to add 29. To get to the next one, I'm going to add to 30. And to get to the next one, I'm going to add this 2 to get 32, and that's in that final category. In the last category, I should have the total number of papers. So for instance, what does this 30 mean? This 30 means that 30 students scored between 100 and 51. Okay? So cumulative frequency is how much frequency has accumulated so far. Okay, we're going to do one more instance of a frequency table. So a teacher recorded how many days her 25 students were absent in the past month. And so the days range from 0 to, what's the highest one here? It looks like it's 5. Okay, so my frequency table can go by, just by ones, right? So it can go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have to go up by the range. So for instance, I'm not sure if there's any, there looks like there's 1 in every category, but let's say that there were no students who were absent for exactly 3 days. Even if there's not exactly 3 days, you have to put 3 in there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and make my frequency table real quick. Okay, so I made my frequency chart, okay, and so I actually should have made the column headings. So let's go down through and tally these up. So I have 9, 6, 3, 3, 2, 1. So 15, 18, 21, 22, 23, 24. So I should have 24 points all total. And if I go back and check that, that should be the same, okay? So this is my frequency. Now my cumulative frequency, Notice that my range is going from smallest to largest in this frequency table as opposed to this one, which goes from largest to smallest. So actually, it's very typical, and you really want to do it this way too, to range yours in ascending order. So starting from the smallest number and going up as you go down. Okay, the cumulative frequency, so here it's just 9. So how many students were absent 0 days? 9 students. Okay, this section here is asking how many students were absent 0 or 1 day, or at the most 1 day. That's another way of saying the same information. So you're going to add 9 and 6 to get 15. All right, how many students were absent at most 2 days? Well, you're going to add 15 to 3 to get 18, and so on. So that's 21, 18 and 3 is 21, 21 and 2 is 23, and 21 and 1 is 24. So the last one should match there. So for instance, if I said, how many students were absent at most 3 days? I can pick off that information right from my cumulative frequency graph. So it would be 21. Okay? So for every frequency table, you're going to add a column that's for cumulative frequency. Okay, a stem and leaf plot is another way of organizing data. But if you have all this data, it's a way of arranging data numerically in ascending order. So let's say that a group of 30 students were asked to record the length of time in minutes spent on math homework yesterday. They reported the following data. So this data that you see is the amount of time they spent on their math homework yesterday in minutes. Okay, so a stem and leaf plot has a stem, just like it sounds like, and a leaf. Okay, the stem is 1 unit. Or, no, I'm sorry, the leaf is always 1 unit. Always, always. The stem can be many units. But in our case, all of the numbers just have a ones place and a tens place. So for us, our leaf is going to be the ones place, and our stem is going to be the tens place. It's not always going to be like this, because if it had hundreds, then our stem would have to have 10 and hundreds place, where our leaves could only have the ones place. So here, I'm going to look at all my different stems that I can, and again, I want to go in ascending order. So my different stems, so I can have, remember, my stem is going to be my tens place. So every single digit number has a 0 in the tens place. Okay, and I see 5 here, so that's my single digit number, and 0. Those have 0 in the tens place, so I want to add that. And I want to have stems, even if they aren't represented, I want to have stems in order up until the highest stem that I see. So the highest tens place that I see, it looks like in the 40s, so let's just put that there. So here's my stem, and here's my leaf. Okay. Now, everything with a 0 in the tens place, I'm going to record in the leaf section. So let's see, I have a 5 here, and I have a 0. So I want to put it in order. So 0 and 5. And I do not have to put commas in between them, because the leaf is always 1 digit. Okay, so the leaf right here is representing 2 numbers. It's representing the number 0, 0, which is just 0, and 0, 5. So this is 0 and the number 5. Okay, the number of leaves you have should always match the number of numbers in your data set. Okay, so once I get all of these numbers in my leaves, I should be able to count up all the numbers individually, and it should match the numbers in my data set. Okay, how many numbers have 1 in the tens place? So I see 15, so I'm going to put a 5 here, and I see 17, so I'll put a 7. I see 12, so I'll put a 2 here. And I'm going to have to go back through afterwards and make a second stem and leaf plot with all of my leaves arranged. Or I could do it, if I had a second, I could really 2, 5, and 7. I could do it right now. Okay, now for my third one, for the 20s, so I have a 2 here, I have a 0, right? 2, 0, 2, 0 represents, that 0 in this leaf category represents 20. I put a 5 here for that 25. I put a 2 here. Let me cross out these 2. I put a 2 there for 22. I have 2 more 20s that I see. Let's see here. Then I have 2 more 20s. I have a 27. I have a 26. A 25. A 22. And a 24 and a 27. Okay. All right, now let's do the 30s. So I have 38. I have another 38, so you represent that twice. I have a 35 and a 36. 37, 33, 30. Okay. Oh, I have an 18 that I didn't take care of, so let me just go ahead and put that there. Now, for 40s, I have a 44, a 40, a 45, a 48. Oh, and I have a 10 here that I didn't take care of, so I'll put a 0 there and the leaf for the 10s. So I should be able to count my number of leaves and count my number of numbers in my data sets, and they should match. So in my leaves, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and they told me that 30 students were there, so I'm good. Now, the second thing that you have to do with a stem and leaf is you have to organize your leaves so that they're in order. So you have to actually make a second stem and leaf plot in order to get everything in order. So I'd have to make this second stem and leaf plot, somewhere on your paper, and you'd have to reorganize your leaves. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to do that here on the video. But your second stem and leaf, so for instance, this leaf of 2 would have to be reorganized so that all the zeros came first, and then all the 2s, and then so I have 3 2s, and the 5s, I have 2 5s, and the 4 would actually have to come right there, okay, and so on. So you'd have to reorganize your leaves so that they're in order, in ascending order. And the third thing you have to do is provide a key. You must provide a key. It's absolutely important to provide a key. So your key is going to be how you read your stem and leaf. So for us, we're going to say that the number 1, so just pick some way to represent. So 1/2 is going to represent the number 12, okay? And that tells us that the stem is the 10s place and the leaf is the 1s place. Okay, let's practice with some numbers that are decimals. So this was the numbers on the quiz the other day. The average rainfall in Washington State. Now, for us, remember the stem, the leaf part has to be 1 unit. So for us, our leaf part, so the smallest unit we see is the 10ths place. So our leaf unit is going to be the 10ths, which means that our stem is going to take up both the 1s and the 10s place. Okay, so we need to go about making, let's see, so if our leaf is going to be the 10s place, let's think about how our stems change. So the largest stem I see is 62, and the smallest stem I see is 56. So I need to go from 62 or 56 to 62, and I need to go in order. Okay. Even if I don't have a leaf for my stem, I still need to have my stem represented. That's absolutely important. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start putting the information in. Okay, 61.5, so I'd go to 61 and put a 5 there. 62.3, I'd go to 62 and put a 3. 60.7 would be represented that way. And so on. Okay, and that would be 0. Okay, now I'm going to reorganize my stem and leaf so that it's in order. So I have to draw a second stem and leaf plot. Here's my stem and here's my leaf. Okay, and I'll just reorganize it using a different color. So 0 and 1 would go first, then 2 and 5, then 0, 2, 8. There's nothing in the 59 plot, so there's nothing here, so you just leave that blank. 7, 5, and 3. So if I count the purple numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I should have 10 numbers in my data set, which I do because I recorded the information across 10 years. Okay, and the last thing that you have to do after reorganizing your leaves is you have to put a key here. So for us, we'll say that something like, and I don't have to use a number in my data set, so I could even say that like 59 point, my key is that 59/3 would be read as 59.3. Notice that 59.3 is not part of my data set, but I can still tell someone how to read my stem and leaf plot using a number like that. So this is just telling somebody, okay, the stem represents the 1 and the 10s, and the leaf represents the 10ths. and the bar is actually like a decimal point. Okay, so that covers all the lessons that we had to do today. You have to do stem and leaf, cumulative frequency table with a cumulative frequency column, and we're going to use this information to make a histogram tomorrow.